So I'd like to welcome everyone back online, in person. Thank you so much. It's a short day today, so I'll try to impart as much additional information to help us deal with why is life such a hassle. Okay, make it less of a hassle. So let's find that comfortable meditation posture once again. And as we mentioned, that most important part is the spine extension. And you can reflect on some of the other things we discussed the last couple of days. And perfectly fine to sit in a chair. Just have your feet straight down, flat on the floor. Try not to lean too heavily against the back of the chair. You can lightly close your eyes, bringing that gaze inward. Just allowing a normal, natural breath to move through your system. So let's not forget the step of relaxing. So in a sense, you're allowing yourself to simply be. So we've heard this expression that we're no longer human beings, we're human doings. So this space you can create in your home, some of you already have. It's really essential for balancing your mind. It becomes the buoyant cushion for your practice and helping us to deal with whatever hassles arise. So it all starts here, you and your mind. But it's hard work. Our body is not comfortable, our mind is not comfortable, it's very normal. But the more you practice in this way, it will become familiar and comfortable. So relaxation, so important. So begin at the top of your head again. Take a couple of minutes. You're just going to scan down through your body, all the way out your feet and toes, noting any place you're holding tension in the body, and using that breath again to open up space in the tension. And every exhalation, releasing that tension. So the inhalation, opening up the space, the exhalation, releasing that tension. And slowly just allowing, just let go and allow yourself to be in this space. So when you're doing this on your own, if you do this on your own in your home, some of you are doing every day, some are new to this, doesn't matter. But rather than trying to meditate and thinking about meditation and having these thoughts running through your mind, am I meditating? Is this meditation? Or squeezing or pushing. Once you allow yourself, give yourself the time to relax, that meditative mind is always there. So just let it be and let it arise. You don't have to work on anything. And you may say, but my mind's full of thoughts, distracting. Just watch them for a while and let them float off. You don't need to fix anything right now when you come to sit. And if there are those problems that arise, be skillful, have a little notepad at your meditation spot. You jot down a word and then you let it go for the rest of your session so it doesn't disturb your session, because you have the rest of your day to take care of all those things. So just afford yourself some quiet stillness, please, if you can, every day. There's no set amount of time you need to do it. Just afford yourself that quiet stillness, and then you build your practice from there. But we never stop. We're never quiet, never quite still. So in the beginning, it's unnerving. The body's not cooperative. You just try your best. So then we want to get our mind oriented in the right direction by setting a good motivation. So helpful. So this is you directing your mind, not distraction taking your concentration away. And in this tradition, we're very focused on benefiting all living beings. But that's really hard to do as an ordinary human. But if we eventually create a practice that helps move us along to enlightenment, which is attainable for all of us, right? To become a Buddha. Buddha means fully awakened being. So if we can invest in our practice, moving us there, from that place, that omniscient mind, that Buddha consciousness, enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, then you're unlimited in helping all living beings. And you happily do it every moment you breathe. It's your purpose for living. So just think about that idea, that Mahayana motivation, to become a Buddha, to benefit all living beings. But let's try not to just set the motivation at the very crown of our heads. Let's feel it deeply in our hearts. So as we know, and this can be unpleasant and uncomfortable, there are many beings right now suffering around the planet. Many, many, many. Some of them you personally know. Some of them we read about in the news. Just as you continue your normal, natural breath, please reflect on some of these beings right now, their situations. Simply note the discomfort in your own mind. But through that discomfort, Can you feel the urgency? How much you want to help relieve their suffering? Let that build in your mind, in your heart. As if they're all crying out to you for help. And as humans, we feel so limited. But let it fuel your practice. So not only do we want to practice, we want to get to enlightenment as quickly as we can for them, for all of them. They're waiting for us. So feel that urgency, feel that drive in your practice. So from this space, take a moment and set your motivation. And if you like the idea of a Mahayana motivation, that you wish to get enlightened to benefit all living beings, whatever that means to you in your own personal life, feel free to include that if you like. Take a moment to set that motivation for our time together today and all the activities of the rest of your day. So let's go to the 9-round breathing and just clear out those subtle cobwebs in our mind, in our subtle energy system in our body. And let's again start with an exhalation as we close off our right nostril, exhaling deeply through the left. And then we're going to switch and close off the left nostril, inhaling deeply through the right. As you do this, imagine you're lessening anger and hatred in your mind stream 3 times. Then we reverse, and we're going to exhale deeply through the right nostril, closing off the left. We'll then close off the right, inhale deeply through your left nostril. And as you do this, imagine you're lessening attachment and desire for your mind stream 3 times. So our last round, we'll exhale through both nostrils. Inhale through both nostrils. And imagine you're lessening ignorance and confusion from your mind stream 3 times. And just allow the mind to settle on the breath. And just imagine right now you are seated beside a clear mountain lake. Imagine you're just on the banks, looking out at this expanse of this vast mountain lake. You don't see the edges of it, of where it ends. And its surface is completely clear. As best as you can, gaze out at that lake, clear, spacious, vast, like your mind, like one of the qualities of your mind, according to Buddhism, clarity. Now, we don't actually experience our mind like that a lot. This is a way to help, to remind us. This is the nature of our mind. Merge yourself with that experience of that clear, vast mountain lake as best as you can. So at times you may feel distracted with thoughts coming through your mind. Very normal. Just like when you're looking out at the lake and a bubble rises to the surface from some disturbance. So just notice this on the surface of the lake. If it's a small thought, it's a small bubble. And small ripples, small disturbance goes out from there. It doesn't take long for it to subside. And the bubble either pops or just dissolves back into the surface of the lake. Sometimes there's a large bubble on the surface, larger ripples, just like when we have an afflictive emotion arising in our mind. Fear, anger, attachment, jealousy, pride, doubt, on and on. And sometimes it feels like it completely takes over our mind. There's no clarity at all. So as you try to merge yourself with this clear expanse of the lake, which is your object of meditation, just notice when disturbances come in your mind. See if you can see them like bubbles on the lake. Let them go. Don't hold on. Don't elaborate. Don't ruminate. Watch them disappear. Watch the ripples subside. And stare at that clarity. Merge yourself with the aspect of the clarity and vastness of the lake as best as you can. Try your best. So for a moment, let go of the lake. Let go of visualizing, thinking about the lake. Just watch your thoughts for a moment. So for instance, if you want to go back to the breath, if I say settle your mind on the breath, so it's a simple, you could focus on the space outside the nostrils, where the air enters in and leaves the body. Keep the mind there, but the mind wanders off at times. So watch where it goes. And look at those thoughts now. Focus on those thoughts that pop up, the distractions. Maybe it's a sound. So again, when you're trying to do meditation, don't give up. I know it's not easy. But if it's a sound and you're meditating, it distracts you. Give it a brief label for a moment. For instance, a sound, or simply hearing, and let it go, and you go back to your object of meditation, like the breath. I mentioned this yesterday. Sometimes it's a mental activity, it's a thought that distracts us. So again, label it a thought or thinking, that's all. Doesn't need to be carried on, and you let it go. Imagine them floating off like bubbles in the sky, and you go back to your object of meditation, the breath. But let's have a look at the thoughts right now. Look at your mental activity, what passes through your mind. And now, instead of focusing on specific thoughts, ideas, memories, can you focus on the space between the thoughts? There are spaces between those thoughts. There's a space of awareness there that is your mind. It's more subtle. See if you can focus on that. So in a sense, staring at that space and keeping the mind focused there as much as you can. So let's go back to seated beside the mountain lake. Just bring yourself back there. And slowly bring yourself back into this room or into your space right now where you're sitting. And slowly, when you're ready, please open your eyes. So often when things are a hassle, you're having struggles, problems, any levels, and again, that reminder of the nature of the mind. So the more you can sit and do either meditation on the clear blue sky we did yesterday, mountain lake, trying to find the spaces between the thoughts, the nature of the mind is clear, one aspect. It's not busyness, it's not hassle, it's clarity. And the other aspect is it's aware, it knows things like that. So that way it's a little bit more of a reminder of like, oh right, my mind is not agitation, it's not fear, it's not aggression, anger or hostility, whatever, like that. So it can help to kind of rebalance. And we will take a break in this session, about 11:30 or so, 11:15, 11:30. So I want to interrupt this program because we are going to go back to pride and the other delusions we were countering. I just want to mention about when you say, why is life such a hassle, okay? Something I find helpful from Pema Chodron, American nun, we have to understand samsara's nature. Most of you are familiar. Samsara, again, is a Sanskrit word that means to turn, to cycle. So we're cycling through suffering as ordinary human beings. We're not Buddhas yet, okay? They're beyond samsara. They don't experience samsara. But so samsara, the simple words mean to turn, to cycle. We're cycling through birth, old age, sickness, death. All of that basically sucks, okay? All of it is suffering. And we did have a baby yesterday. My friend's baby was born. The 8 pounds, 8 ounces of baby. Big baby, first baby. So after, whatever you go through, 18 hours of labor, it was a C-section. So, I couldn't imagine her pushing it out. It was too big, but beautiful baby. So the C-sections always look so round and rosy and, so that was exciting. So again, you're thinking samsara's nature. We first have to understand that. Most of you are aware of. So hassles are going to show up. That's part of our life, right now as an ordinary being. Hassles are going to be there. So what happens is we cover over samsara. We don't want to believe it. So we're constantly trying to fix samsara and perfect it. It's useless. Okay, fix your mind, then samsara goes away. So generate in your mind, I can get out of samsara. Everybody in this room can get out of samsara. Everybody in this class right now. Know that you can get out and let it drive that into your practice. Like, this really stinks. I want out of this. So let it help you generate renunciation. To let that grow in your heart. So renunciation, long word, as you know. What does it mean to you, renunciation? What would you say when I say renunciation? What does that mean to you? Anybody? Giving up? What are you giving up?
That's hard to answer. More letting go than giving up. So it's baggage.
Letting go of baggage?
Yeah, things that bother you that shouldn't bother you.
Things that bother you that shouldn't bother you? Sure. Yeah. What else you? Yeah.
It's being bored to death of the same old stuff.
Okay, being bored to death of the same old stuff. Yeah, this is samsara. Samsara's nature. Other people,
Can
anybody online?
can you
What do you?
hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I did
Yes.
see that in Antarctica, Lake Longing is right beside Lake Disappointment. This is a true story. If you look on the map in Antarctica, Lake Longing is right beside Lake Disappointment,
Wait, so in
basically.
Antarctica,
In Antarctica, in Antarctica, yeah. So they've named it's like the Bay of Longing is right beside the Bay of Disappointment. This is what they've named it. I just
oh,
saw
I
it on the
see. The
map
Bay
last
of
night.
Longing is next to the Bay of Disappointment.
The Bay of
Okay.
Disappointment, basically. So I
Okay.
suppose like renunciation in a broader sense is kind of like giving up any sort of hopes in samsara, any kind of longing for the things of samsara, basically. So it doesn't necessarily mean if somebody offers you a sandwich that you say no, I refuse to have a sandwich. It's just that you don't long for a sandwich. You don't long for the things of samsara. You instead focus on a desire for the liberation of yourself and others from suffering, I guess, sort of thing,
Right,
that kind of thing.
right. Yeah, longing for the liberation. Everybody here, kind of what, yeah, longing for the liberation and give. And so on one level, on a very basic level, when you realize what samsara's nature, you're kind of giving up your suffering. You're saying, I've had enough. And we've all reached places in our lives where some pattern you've been doing that does not benefit you or anyone else, but we're stuck in these patterns. And some of us fortunately reach a place and go, I'm done with this. I can't do this anymore. Either out of boredom, it's either boredom or frustration, or you have a huge fight with somebody and horrible relationship breakup. And, I have a friend, we talked last night, going through a horrible divorce right now, like just, the kind of worse it gets. And yet, so he's really struggling right now. He's really suffering, a 34-year marriage or something. But I couldn't help have this feeling, and I've known him quite well, and he's a wonderful person, and as is his wife. They're just struggling, that something incredibly good's going to come out of this for him. Like, I just know I said, in 2 years, you and I were going to look back, and you're going to be really grinning ear to ear, like he's releasing something. So it's like this huge renunciation for him, like, letting go of the marriage, letting go all that means, but so if you can let go, and we're clinging on sometimes to suffering. We need this. It's not just stuff. It's not your stuff. It's an attitude. I'm going to fix some sort of. I hear people. As soon as I get the new job, everything's going to be great. I've heard that so many times. Soon as I find my relationship, everything's going to be great. Soon as I build the shed, everything's going to be good, right? As soon as I get the kitchen remodeled, as soon as I get my kid off to uni, everything's going to be great. And then the next thing pops up, another obstacle. Like, we're totally deceiving ourselves with that. And people put their practice off is the biggest thing. Once I get that, then I'm going to start. Then I'm going to set up. That's the first thing that has to happen. Set that up. Because life's going to continue to happen. You'll never get to it. And certainly know people that want to start a family. They wanted to have kids. And I saw people. I have some people just happened. They did it, they weren't ready, and they did it, and they had another kid. And then some people, they're planning, they're waiting for the right moment, it never happens. By the time they decide to do it, they can't get pregnant. Or there's some other obstacle. It always happens. This is samsara. So the more we relate, and you can go into the middle scope of the Lam Rim, and it's all about the sufferings. Okay, so people go, why do I want to meditate on that? Okay, because it helps you renounce samsara. You want to reach liberation, and you can. Everybody in this room, everybody in this course. But you have to kind of go through, and they call it the 3, the 6, and the 8. 3 different types of sufferings. It's broken down in different ways, because this is the first teaching the Buddha gave. Hello, there is suffering. Again, I was dismayed by that when I got into Buddhism. I was a little like, this guy gets enlightened? And the first thing out of his mouth, there's suffering? He didn't talk about love, happiness? That's the path to love and happiness. You have to understand how you suffer. So they break it down. There's 3 sufferings, then there's another breakdown of 6 sufferings, You can look at it like that. Some of them are similar. And then there's 8 sufferings. But you meditate one at a time, over and over. Is it tedious? Yes. Does it bring the mind down? Yeah. That's what it's designed to do. So that you kind of say, I'm done with being lonely. That's one of the sufferings. We have sufferings of meeting and parting. You know how excited you're going to see somebody, great. Well, you're going to part at some point. At some point you part in death. You found the perfect relationship. First of all, it doesn't exist, okay? But then at some point, even in death, you're going to be separated. It's a reality. I've seen many people now, long-term partnerships. Sometimes somebody married a person 15 years older. That was all very exciting, but it's different when the person's 86. You know, you still have a lot of life, you're much younger, but they're 86, this, you know, this illness, this thing, heart trouble, whatever's going on, and there you are, you know. It's different, it looks different now than it did when you were 30. It looks really different. So this is inevitable, this is life. So most of us know this and we're okay, but we still have a little, sometimes there's a subtle thing in the mind of, I'm just gonna make that adjustment, it's all gonna be okay. It's never okay in samsara. It's never okay. And some of you may remember years ago, I don't know if this was commercial advertising, I was living at a center. We didn't see TV there, but somebody told us about this ad, and then I did see it once. They invented a new perfume called Samsara. Some perfume company named it Samsara. They thought that was, you know, it's a sexy word, Samsara. They didn't know what it meant, but okay. Is it still, yeah? And what they do is the ad, somebody brought this to the attention of our Buddhist community when I was in California, and they said, and it has a woman like in slow motion, moving across the screen, and there's a magenta, you know, hot pink scarf. She's wearing, you know, a shawl, and it's flying in the wind. You know, they have a fan on her, and she's, you know, so like this is desirable. You see this attractive woman, and you know, if you think that's attractive, and then there's a voiceover, samsara. Like that's what right? So you kind of go, oh, what's that? Oh, you know, this is like in the 90s, so it was like, oh, what is that, right? So just to add to the story, and so we thought it was hysterical as a Buddhist. We were like, who needs more of that? You know, like what are they selling? You know, selling suffering. How wonderful. But that's what most of the stuff is being sold, is suffering. All the stuff. I don't care if it's a fleece vest or a new pair of, you know, hiking boots, or it's suffering is always there merged with it. Always there merged with it, you know. And it's okay. There's some practical things we need to do. You need new sponge for your sink, and you need new shoes. I mean, okay. But our attachment becomes all, you know, then I want this one. And how many times people research, I've had friends, the extensive research to buy the perfect kitchen, whatever they need. They'll spend hours doing it, not on their practice, but on that. It's like that, okay? So then the samsara story, just to add to this. So sometime around that time, a little bit after those years with that advertising, I was traveling with a lama in India for a couple of years, Kirti Senchab Rinpoche. We went to Antarctica, since he brought up, we actually went there. It was bizarre. These students sponsored us to go, and for him to bless his 7th continent. The whole point was he was an amazing being, one of the teachers of the Dalai Lama. And so I was applying in San Francisco for a new Indian visa, 10-year multiple entry visa Americans can get, and was waiting. And another teacher that ordained me, his attendant was waiting to pick me up, was going to come and pick me up, and I was waiting on the street. So I was just waiting, and then he called me and said, I won't be there for half an hour, I'm late. And so I said, okay. So I looked across the street, and there seemed to be some sort of store, but I didn't really focus on what the store was. And I'd been in India for 2 years, and you come back from India, you're always a little bit like, you know, stranger in a strange land in the States. You know, it was kind of like I wasn't really tracking. When I went into this store, and it looked like a very nice store. I couldn't really tell what it was, the floor I was on that I had entered. And there's a man dressed up in a very nice suit, and he's like, can I help you? And and I don't know what they sell, like, because there's counters, but I can't see anything. So I looked at him, and you're always a little rough when you come back from India a little bit, your manners, so then I couldn't really tell what he could help me with because I didn't know what this store was. And then I said to him, "What is this place?" I just blurred out. And then he says to me, "This is Bloomingdale's." Okay, so Bloomingdale's is a big high-end department store in the States. I don't even know if they exist anymore, but I knew that name, so then I suddenly had he must have thought I was like, I'm like, "What is this place?" He goes, "This is Bloomingdale's." And then I went, "Oh, okay, I know Bloomingdale's," but I didn't know what this floor was. But it ends up, it's a cosmetic floor. But the way they designed it is all the cosmetics are in the counters because they wanted a very sleek look to the street. It's a high-end store. And so then I walked up the steps, and then I said, "Oh, okay, it's a cosmetic, And so I'm on the road, and I wouldn't shop in Bloomingdale's, but I needed some lotion. And I thought, and anyway, I wasn't going to buy anything. It was too expensive. But I went on the floor, and I'm just looking. This is expensive stuff. So I go to one area, and I see there's a pot underneath in the glass, right, in the shelf. And there's a pot this big of some kind of facial lotion thing. It's $800. It's $800. And I was like, I'm looking at and I was like, is it $8? Like it can't be 800. I mean, but I was like, and then some man comes over and he says, "Oh, madam." And I said, is that $800? And he said, "It is." And then jokingly, I said to him, "What, is there gold in there?" And he said, "Yes, there is." It was just, so anyway, I'm walking around this thing. It was ridiculous. But, in these stores, you can make an offering. Imagine all the Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, like you transform it. There's always a way to practice Dharma. Anyway, so I'm just basically, as we say, waiting for the time to pass till I can get my ride. And then I went to another counter. And then the man sees, and he says, "Madam, would you like some samples?" So then I said, "Well," he said, "it's body lotion, moisturizer." And I said, "Oh, actually, I can really use some body lotion, and it's little, so I could travel with it, little pot, for free." Anyway, so I said, "Oh, actually," and I said, "Sure." And he says, "Well, the names are on the bottom. It's scented on the bottom." So I turned one of them over. What do you think it said? Samsara. Samsara. And I just had such a laugh with myself, and I was a little bit like, as I turned over, and I was a little bit like, "Rinpoche, are you here?" like it's just so funny how, and it's so interesting when things like that in your life come together to remind your mind, and rebalances your mind. Like, you don't need attachment to any of this stuff. None of it matters, none of it. So renunciation is really, the beginning is that little spark, I want to give up my suffering. I'm done with this. I can't continue this pattern to do it again. The time wasters, give up the time wasters. Give up the negative stuff you do in relationships. Give up some negative work habits that you're perpetuating. Let's look at that. But renunciation is really when you strive day and night to get out of samsara. So you're really invested in your practice, really trying to do the best you can, really building that path out, that exit, really oiling that exit door. That's renunciation. So it's something to think about. And then I want to talk about from Pema Chodron, okay, because this is samsara's nature. And so she quotes Suzuki Roshi, great Zen master. Think about this, okay? When we think about hassles, life is like stepping into a boat that is about to sail out to sea and sink. That's our situation, by the way, okay? So rather than be freaked out by that, okay, I'm prepared. My practice is I've got my life vest on, and I'm continuing to add air into it, and I'm continuing to get it streamlined so that I'm going to float well, and I've already navigated, and I've had a map of the seas, and I know where I'm going, and there's the island of enlightenment, and I'm getting a paddle together, and the boat can go out, but knowing that I'm in this samsaric mess, The boat is about to sink, but I'm aware. I'm going to keep my head above water because I've got my buoyant level of my practice, that cushion. So that's what we're doing. And then, so this is what some of the stuff we're talking about is, she talks a lot about groundlessness. Groundlessness. This is samsara's nature. And she says, how can we live wholeheartedly in the face of impermanence? Okay, knowing that one day we're going to die. Okay, that's a premise we've got. Okay, that doesn't go away. Okay, and so here's another thing that I found so easy, really helps my practice is, what is it like to realize? What is it like to realize we can never completely and finally get it all together? Let go, right? You're never going to get it all together in samsara. Not possible. And I know some really organized people, okay? So there are some overly organized people. Control, 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 control. Well, they are so wound, really hard for them to meditate. Because even that meditation thing is going to have to be perfect. And talked about perfectionism. Nothing's perfect in samsara. Let it go. Over and over. But watch that nature of yourself. So each of us, through meditation, you get to know your mind. You get to know your mind. And you can kind of say, wow, you might have a little bubble pops up. Well, I'm a control freak. I'm a perfectionist. I'm lazy. I always forget, you know. I try to meditate, but I'm just too distracted. Like, you just get to know yourself. You gently get to know yourself. So all those things, you're just realizing about yourself. And then what you do is you look for little tips and little antidotes of what helps somebody who's lazy. You know, what's the kind of thing that helps me remember, to remind me? Well, that's familiarization. That means doing something over and over again. Then it becomes automatic. Because the things you like doing, you don't forget to do them. But some of them are time wasters, right? I worked with this wonderful guy at one of the centers. He's a good friend of mine. Wonderful guy. He worked in grounds at one point. He was cooking at one point. Different activities he had. And any time his work, he could never remember anything. It was a continual reminder. Like whoever managed him, I managed him at one point. It was, and we would, we liked him so much, but it was just so frustrating to be like, he forgot, he forgot, he forgot, he forgot. But the Bob Dylan concert tickets, never. He knew exactly when they were going on sale. He knew the hour they were going on sale. He could tell you exactly what was played in every set of the Rolling Stones concert he went to. And when I heard this, I was like, what? So we have that capacity. We can do it, but we're not always doing it focused on, it's not what we call joyous effort. Joyous effort, one of the 6 perfections. Joyous effort isn't just making effort with, it's making effort in virtue. Stuff that's going to get your mind out of samsara. That's joyous effort. So have some adjustment have a realistic adjustment though, to deal with it. Meaning you full-time work, you might have a family to support, all these other activities. So, sitting for 6 hours a day, that may not work. 6 hours of practices. I'm a nun, so I can get away with that. That's why I'm a nun, because I did all the other stuff, and I went, I'm so tired of this. So this helped me focus my life a little better. But you don't need to be a monastic to be a good practitioner. But be realistic, set it up of what's possible, build it, and you're going to find if you really have a rich, consistent practice going, you're going to start increasing the amounts you're doing it because it's making you joyful. It's making you happier, and it's helping you deal with all those hassles that show up. Am I making sense? Are we communicating? Right? So please really figure out in that sense of what works. But think about, you're never going to completely and finally have it all together. Let that one go. And there's people that even their practice, I said, has to be perfect, and they want to have this. And then one day what happens is you set up a practice, and you get this idea, I'm going to do it every day, every morning. But something interrupts you. So one day you get interrupted, and then you're a little, and you are, if I get interrupted, I'm a little off balance. I'm a little bit like that. But can you have a quick recovery? because they find people that are genuinely happy, joyful, have a much quicker recovery time when negative stuff happens. They have an easier time to reframe a situation into the positive, right? So let's be resilient. That's resiliency. So we went through this incredible period called COVID. Lockdowns, isolation, distancing, people were ill, people died. We went through that. And the people that I know of all the different aspects of my life, whether it was neighbors, high school friends, all my Dharma buddies in all different parts of the world, and then reading stories of just general people, how they were coping, the ones that did the best were the ones that were resilient. Resilient, this word of flexibility, right? Creativity, innovation, change, like they just adapted. You know, wow, our hair salon is closing. And then realizing this was a neighbor. The hair salon is not only closing, it's permanently closing. They can't manage, they don't have the money, can't do it. So pivot, she's gonna start something in her house. She's gonna do this. Her husband got trained for something else, different vocation, like brilliant. You know, it wasn't what they planned, right? It wasn't a tidy little package. They did the best they could. Income dipped for a while. Sure, everybody's dipped. Most people's dipped like that. And they just found a way, we're just gonna deal with it. It's okay. And that's what we do. So your program gets interrupted, your meditation gets interrupted one day. Some people can't get started the next day then. I don't know what, never mind. They don't have enough of that habit. Enough of the habit. That rut hasn't been well established, the Dharma rut. The other ruts are great. You know, back to the phone and I'll waste some time, you know, scrolling through dancing cat videos, okay? That one, you've already got that one down. So again, you just start the next day, you practice. For me, it's every day is like begin again, okay? Making sense? Try your best. So this is the thing about, is it possible, when you deal with hassles outside, is it possible to increase our tolerance for instability and change? Because change is the only thing you can count on. It's happening all the time. Your mind is changing. Everything's changing, okay? So how do I learn to, in the resilience, increase our tolerance? Think about it every day, our intolerance for instability and change. Like unpredictability, that's life in samsara. So there's some people that are rigid, so they can't deal with the change. You know, you're meeting with some people, at the last minute, the restaurant we were going to for lunch was closed. So we pivoted here, and they're not happy. And the whole lunch, they're like, well, the last place, they have a better salad. And this one, the seating is nicer, and the plants are nicer, and this. It's so boring, that. So boring negativity. Okay? So check if that's one of your things. Can I notice the change? And I breathe in, and I breathe out, and I breathe in, I'm uncomfortable with the change, and I breathe out and let go a little bit, and I breathe in, discomfort, and I breathe out, and that's samsara. A lot of samsara, it's all uncomfortable. So again, the more I practice getting comfortable with discomfort, the more comfortable it is. And then I'm a little bit more resilient, more flexible. Things change, okay, so we'll go to the other restaurant. You know, let's be positive. So just something to think about, the general groundlessness of samsara's nature. And so, and this is the thing about, in your heart, can you resolve, can you think just about embracing not only the world as it is, your life as it is, okay? And somebody wrote, I can't remember if they're still here, they wanted to talk about attachment to how I want things to be. That's another type of attachment, how I need things to be a certain way, right? A lot of people have that. I need things to be a certain way, okay? And then you don't get your way. Wait, let me just check. Oh, what is renunciation? Rejecting. I'm sorry, I'm not able to look at the chats when I'm teaching, but maybe you can see if there's something there. Letting go of self-grasping delusion and ignorance. Yeah, absolutely. We're letting go of all those things in renunciation. So for the person that had this attachment to how you want things to be, okay, we can prepare and plan. We have to do that sometimes in life. I travel a lot to the centers, so sometimes there needs to be a train ticket in advance, some transportation ticket, some planning that somebody's going to be there at the train station or wherever I'm going, things like that. I have to plan that the bag has to be packed at a certain time. I mean, there's all these things. So that's normal. That's normal stuff. How dug in are you, right? So I was just doing retreat on Shetland Island, a friend's property. Has anybody been there? Anybody been? Okay, most go there. It's very special. I was very moved. I'm always often looking for quiet retreat place, and she was very kind to invite me, and she has a very good setup there. Very, very kind, and I had a month there. I was very touched by the place. And so what happens is when I'd researched and thought about it, it's wind and rain, right? Shetland Island is what I've heard. Wind and rain, even in the summer. A lot of light in the summer, but wind and rain, and except for the month I was there. And so she had a little, I was mostly in retreat by myself, not talking, but she had a bit of a plumbing issue during the month or something. So a couple guys came out to help. And then what I'd heard was, we've never had weather like this. Okay, now there is global warming, so everything is warming up. Every place I go, everybody says that. It's warmer than it's ever been. That's scary. But the weather was beautiful for most of the time, except the last day. It was wind and rain, heavy wind. It was a heavy storm. So I kind of liked that. And it was a great day to leave on that, because it was kind of and the thing is, I didn't want to leave. And then my flight got canceled. Right, this is, be careful for what you wish for. So I got to the airport, but they made it they were so helpful at the airport, incredible, so again, it ended up being a really perfect ending that I didn't leave the day I did, because I would have been right back in London shortly after ending retreat. And this way I got an extra day on my own, but in a place where there were some people, so I could kind of check that out, and it was just perfect with the wind and the rain, which was perfect. And it made it easier to leave because it was such a tremendous storm that, so think about, I need things to be a certain way, how tightly you're wound. And that mind is so constrictive, and then it's not open to other stuff that's coming in. I've helped run some nonprofits, manage nonprofits, hired a lot of different people. For a while, was a total control freak about it, and then learned, like, if I could just step out of my own way. This person had a fantastic idea. This person was a great manager. They did it so much better than I did it here. This one. And suddenly it was this cooperative, collaborative approach, which is the way the world goes around so much better with harmony, when we're all collaborating, cooperating, using different strengths that we have, and waking up to the weaknesses you have. I don't do that well, but you're great at it. Would you like to do that? Was incredibly empowering for certain people, as well as myself, to let go. I spent a year at one of these centers. My mantra was, because I realized I had this hold on stuff, my mantra almost for a year in the back of my mind was, let go, let go, let go. So you can practice a little bit with that, to notice the tightness, how restricted you are holding stuff. It has to be this way. Then you're missing some other brilliant, beautiful way that may go better. So it's scary in the beginning to let go and be like, to let this woman manage the office, for instance, which was something I didn't want to do anymore. So I was tired of it. You let somebody else do it. And the interesting thing was, they didn't do it at all the way I did it. But everything that needed to happen, happened. So I watched the process. She was also very skillful, right? Very smart, good communicator, and really good with people. And then when I saw that everything was happening, that we needed happening, even in a totally different way, then I could just get out of the way. I never micromanaged her. I never checked in with her. It was just running, and I could let that happen, and then I could go off to do the stuff I was supposed to be doing, the director stuff, raising money, visioning stuff, you know, it was great. And she was happy, I was happy, and many different areas like that. So you practice, you try a little bit. Now, you need the right person, because there were some people we hired, and even she hired, and they weren't doing the job. So you check in a little bit, and then you kind of make adjustments, and you go. And then there's occasionally this, because it's samsara, somebody that does most of the job well, okay? But not all of it. And then you just allow sometimes. This is the best it's going to be. It's okay. It's not perfect. The world's not perfect. Fortunately, at our centers, we always had this expression, I don't know if you have this expression, we're not doing brain surgery, right? So meaning it's not going to be life or death generally with people. And we would get some pretty intense, we got a lot of homeless people at our center. We had sometimes, because we were retreat centers that tend to attract mentally ill. We got some people running from abusive spouses that needed shelter. We had some pretty intense, a lot of schizophrenics showed up and different people, and we could absorb certain people with certain numbers. You know, we couldn't have too many of those people because we didn't have people to manage them at the center. And Lama Yeshe would say, you're not a mental health facility. Centers are not. So you're not going to fix mentally ill people, and you don't need to take them in or accommodate them. But if you can help a little bit along the way, you could do. But Lama was like, no. And you need to be mentally balanced to practice Dharma. That's another thing. Okay? So again, things are good enough sometimes. It was good enough because sometimes people weren't paid very much, and you know things like that you know, and it's just, and I learned so much at Kopan Monastery as well, because recently I was there again and spent a lot of time there over the years. So at the kitchen and the food is always a thing that Westerners talk about. You know, the food is all carbs. Well, that's what they have in Nepal, and it's cheap, and they're feeding lots of people. So, you know, it's one thing in our countries, we have incredible food, balance of food, whatever. So I heard some Westerners talking, and then they went to this manager in the office, the kitchen, or the office about the kitchen. And I've heard this over the years, these comments. Like, you know, you'd have a meal that would have white rice, potatoes, and noodles at one meal. Very little vegetables. Okay, so we kind of in our countries go, well, we wouldn't maybe serve all that in one meal. It's a lot of starch, a lot of carbs. But so I hear this in the office, somebody saying, and then the person leaves, and then I know the two monks in the office, and they said, yes, we've told the kitchen many times, and they just blow us off and ignore us. So then you just, Kopan, I learned, like, you just deal, that's it. I mean, there's food, people get filled, not a lot of Westerners stay there for years and years. The ones that are living there can make their own food and things like that and supplement. But so sometimes it's good enough and nobody's gonna die and you just get on. And also at centers, as you know, you have a large building here, which is wonderful and incredible potential, and it needs a lot of work over the years. And I've seen places transform, and I was running in Vermont we have a beautiful retreat center there, Milarepa Center, the northeast of the state. So when I got there, it's an 1860s farmhouse and huge property, but there's not much else there. We built a couple of cabins while I was there, and there's a couple small retreat places. And the farmhouse was a sty. It was disgusting when I got there. And there was a barn loaded with people's junk that left their stuff, and just on and on, everything broken. Windows broken, like it would be like you look at it was just a bunch of broken windows and tape. It was just so. Every time I pulled up a blind, there'd be like some taped broken windows. It was really. So again, me and the guy that came, wonderful guy, we were like, where do we start? But the thing was, in a situation, anything you did was an improvement. It was like a vast improvement. So we literally, Lama Zopa Rinpoche would be bite by bite, small, bite-sized chunks, and you move through it, and then you go, wow, we fixed that. We painted that room. Look how nice that looks. And you have to take the moment to rejoice. Please take the time. At centers, you do one thing and you don't rejoice, and because you got the next thing take a moment with your staff, with the people, the community. Look how nice that looks. Really celebrate. How fantastic. Have a little tea outside the painted room. And it was so interesting because when I was there for a few months, people would come that had been to the center for years, would come by and now see what's going on, because it was partially closed at one point. Let's see what's going on. And they'd come in and they'd walk in, and then I'd see them kind of go, and I thought, is something wrong? You know, and I said, is, you know, do you want a cup of tea? Is everything okay? And they go, it's so clean. And I was like, yes, it is. You know, I just couldn't, you know, so it's very exciting. You know, you got a library arranged. That took time. All the unpacking of books and all the, and you might say, oh, well, we have all these other books. You got that done. Great, looks great. You hung this Tonka up here. You got this beautiful Maitreya with the blue around. I mean, it just, you know, I can see ideas of what people are trying to do, and it's beautiful, beautiful, you know, so the altar and different things. I had a very comfortable stay, you know. So you just have to break it down without looking at it and going, oh my God, like, how are we gonna get the money to fix the heating system and you just tell people what you need. Put it on your website, tell people this is, you know. So we constantly, there's some centers feel like they can't do that they've put it out there. I don't know if that's an American thing but people are very willing to help. You know, suddenly we got a guy, I have carpentry skills, I'll come and fix the thing in the library. You know, and then this is how much money we need to do this job, or this just broke. We just got an announcement from Milarepa Center. So the heater that I was there, the furnace, when I was there, well, that was a long time ago. So it needs replacing now. It's expensive. So she put it right in the newsletter, 13,000 bucks. I gave $25, right? How many other people gave, you know? And they'll have it like that. They'll have the money for it. And so it's not so, and everybody feels they contributed, and they come and they go, you know, I helped with the furnace. I did that. So unfortunately, they can't see the furnace, it's in the cellar, but we did that we needed a new stove at Vajrapani Institute. And you walk right in, and in the kitchen, I'd show people the old stove, leaking propane. It was like from the 1950s, this unbear of a, I said, this is what we need to replace, it's not healthy, we're toxing everybody out in the Gompa, in the kitchen, in the dining room. You know, $4,500 years ago. Got a new, I had the picture on the wall is what we're gonna buy. So we knew what we wanted. Here's the price. We had it like in a weekend. We had the money like that. And then they came back and they said, I helped with the stove. There's the stove I bought. So people feel invested. So it happens. It's very exciting. So just think about, you need things a certain way. And I don't know who was the person that asked that, if that's helpful. Trying that letting go process, because other people have some great ideas, and it empowers other people, and it gets people involved in the center too, if it's a center issue. But more people can help, and we're more creative together, I think. More supportive like that. Can you speak up a little bit? Sorry.
How do you find your balance between being open? Obviously, you can't get out of bed like without any plan, any idea where you're heading, any idea what you want to achieve in the widest sense. You know, normal people, you'll have a household to run, your kids to feed. You have some ground level things that, in inverted commas, you have to achieve. I mean, you could get out of bed, walk up, open the door, walk out and leave everything behind. You could, in theory, but maybe that's not the best solution either. So you need to find a balance. How do you find that balance?
I didn't hear everything she said. Can you just summarize sorry. I think, could you hear online what she was saying? No, okay, they didn't, okay.
It's like how you remain open while still having like a structure to your life.
Yes, yes. I mean, some of us need a structure. Some people are not. They're pretty flow. But so identify what you find helps you. Like for me, a little bit of a structure helps. I like to do some of my practice in the morning and often I'm with a lot of people, so I know that that'll take up part of the day, and I enjoy that. But then I have a lot of practice I want to do. So if you find there's a structure, and people have to work, and sometimes they're spending 8 to 10 hours a day working, so you know that's a priority to pay your rent, pay your mortgage, so you're going to have that chunk of time, or you have a family to take care of. So some of that, some people find they function better with the structure of, if you have kids, it can, lend that. So I just think to try to find a balance with it, having some structure, but knowing in samsara that structure will be interrupted, right? And just having, again, take a deep breath and kind of go, okay, so right now, what are the priorities? This just got interrupted. So right now, I do have to pick up the kid from school, or I have to hand that thing in at work. I have to get that done. So, and that gets to the top of the list. These 3 things I can do tomorrow. I'm not going to have time to do the food shopping today, and it doesn't have to happen today. I'm not going to be able to clean the room today, but I will have to do that tomorrow. Does that help a bit?
That's very good, because I often imagine, so letting everything go is like, and then what do you get up for?
Yeah, I mean, you're not letting
That's really helpful.
yeah, and samsara, yeah.
Structure, but accept that it might change.
Yes, that's right, except that it might change, because it often does change, and you're not totally letting everything go, because that can fall into irresponsibility. And there are people that do that, and they do it in relationships, in families, at work, and it ends up somebody else's problem. Somebody else has to pick it up. So also make sure in your relationships, if you have a relationship, short-term, long-term, that there's a balance. And this is tricky, because often there isn't. And somebody's doing the bulk of the housework, or somebody's doing the bulk of the fixing, or the cleaning, or the caretaking of the kids, and things like that. So see if you can, and some of that comes from clear, open, kind communication between partners, and doing it early enough, because once some habits have set in long term, it's really hard to make changes. But so knowing things can get interrupted, and yeah, that's helpful. I hope that's helpful. Yes.
Maya's sent a message online. She says that one of the Buddhist centres I'm at, I think, they have a Sangha work day where anyone can come and attend, help with maintenance or any help the Buddhist centre needs. And it's a nice way to give back to the Sangha, and also to practice generosity.
Absolutely, yeah. Many centers have work days and things like that, and you come, and we used to have that weekend work parties for the retreat center. We had things we had to get wood in, we needed this, we needed the library reorganized, we needed the kitchen cleaned. Brilliant, and people enjoy, and then you can have a little meditation before you start, motivation before you start, serve lunch, and then we'd have a dedication at the end, or we'd have a little practice that people could stay if they wanted to do a little Tara practice with us, medicine Buddha practice, something like that, if there were some sick people in the community or for the planet. And wonderful, it's really helpful like that. Thank you. So let's take a little break. Now in the break, we're going to take about 20 minutes. Let's have a cup of tea, go to the bathroom, but don't just blah, blah about ordinary things. Think about what renunciation is to you. You can discuss with others. You can meet somebody new if there's somebody you haven't met. What does renunciation mean to you? How can you adjust a few things realistically in your life to get a little bit more time for practice? Things like that. How do you deal with change in your life? What might help you deal a little bit more easily with change? So you can discuss a few things like that. Then we're going to talk about pride. Thank you. 20 minutes.